to today's episode of Today's Harmonics, brought to you by Quantum Play Studios. We are your hosts. I am Aria, and this is Rachel Z. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today we are thrilled to introduce our topic. We went back and forth on themes, and we landed on the theme of drumroll telepathy. Yeah. So I mean, I'll say it like this. We chose the theme of telepathy because, well, to be honest, it's on our minds. Get it? On our minds. But but it's totally intended. So to me, and I think to you as well, and I'm so glad we're diving into this in our first segment. To me, the current astrological weather is very much bringing up this mental field or our mental bodies, our individual mental, our small minds, our larger minds, the mind. Yeah, of course, of course. No worries. No, of course. I'm hearing you loud and clear. Fascinating. I feel all of these technology and telepathy, the technology things just weave into the mental stuff loud and clear, Rachel.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Does it sound
absolutely.
different?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit.
Okay, let's see. Test, test, test.
I love that we're still live right now.
I know we are still live. We're doing
You
this
know
live.
what?
Telepathy and technology.
Technological,
Yes.
yeah. The tech problems are
Yes.
just a part of life now. So
Yes.
you're solid?
Okay, we're
Okay.
good. We're good.
All
Sorry
right.
about that. You wouldn't
Welcome
have
back.
heard me at all. So I am Rachel Z. You would have heard so.
Yep.
All right,
Never
you know what?
sound.
Let's take it from the top, Aria. Let's do
Okay.
that. And in the replay, so you guys are seeing this. This is live broadcast TV, so that you're seeing a little bit of us figuring out the new world producing aspects of all these things. So let's take it from the
Yeah.
top and go right
From
into
the
it.
top.
Let's do it.
All right. So, welcome again. Welcome to today's Harmonics, brought to you by Quantum Play Studios. We are your hosts, Aria and Rachel Z. Today's topic is that of telepathy. And the reason we chose it is because the current astrological climate, to me, is inviting us to have greater intimacy with our mental bodies, with our minds, and the collective, or like the one mind or the all mind, in many different ways. So, in a second, Rachel, I think you're going to take us through the astrological
Oh
landscape
yes. So I will share my screen.
as,
Hold on. Let's see here. Present now. Do do do. I have the chart of the moment. Let me just.
yeah. Can you make it bigger?
I'm gonna see if I can. Oh dear. Okay, hold on.
That's okay. It is viewable. For those who are less familiar, you might have to learn to recognize the glyphs of astrology. But I think you're going to take us through, so you'll know what each of the planets are,
Yeah, so
or where
give me
everything
just a
is.
second. I'm going to
Yeah.
basically come back here. Do 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 do.
Yeah, I think the reason the theme of telepathy is important for me is, as a Gemini, I'm an air sign. And so Gemini is often associated with the mental bodies. And while, we're in the season of Virgo now, I think the season started yesterday. And Virgo is an earth sign, certainly, but it is the other sign that is ruled by the planet Mercury. So there is a very different aspect of how the mind functions. Each of us have different experiences of where Virgo is based on where the placement is in our natal charts, but it almost fleshes out a very different energy of Mercury. So you still have thoughts and communication, an organization, and even aspects of telepathy, but they are expressed one way in Gemini and another way in Virgo. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, like as a Gemini, having one side of that, I have a stellium in Gemini, very fleshed out. I have like nothing. I have some obscure planet in Virgo. But so like I get to play with it. But I have a lot of Virgos in my life, and I think so do you, right?
I do have a lot of Virgos in my life as well, Aria. So I guess what we can look at right now is like the sun is like right there between, like, just has entered Virgo. So this, like, I guess this feeling of what Virgo kind of represents,
Yeah.
like symbolically. Like when I think of Virgo season, I think of also like nursing for some reason, because I think of like, yeah, no, because I think of the caduceus and I think of like healthcare and Mercury and service, and like I've been reading Promethea, and in Promethea, like this concept of she holds a caduceus as her like her weapon, and a big part of her is like being like a nurse on like the fields of war and being like this like angel of like justice and mercy kind of situation. So Virgo brings
Yeah.
with it, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to pause.
Yes.
Caduceus, for people who don't know,
Oh
is
yes.
basically the staff that is carried by the Greek god or Roman god Hermes or Mercury, and it's the common like pharmaceutical symbol with the
Mm.
snakes and the wings. It's also, I think sometimes it's shown as like a chalice, but the traditional symbol is like the hospital and pharmacy symbol. And both Rachel and I have a background in healthcare.
Yes, that's why.
Please
That's,
continue. I'm
yeah. So
sorry.
it kind of rings, yeah. So like it, we've actually been, I guess, involved in like a whole industry. Our service, our work actually has been in something that is very, I think, Virgo oriented in
Yes.
some regards. And so let's see here. What else is kind of around there? Um, well,
Yeah,
like,
so next week I think the moon will be in Virgo because there's a new moon, but
okay,
right now it is not. But like that's the September kicks off with the sun and moon,
yes.
and
Let's
like
see
that's
what aspects this brings out. We've got the moon in Aries right now. Mercury's in
yeah.
Leo. Venus is in Virgo as well. Still, yes, that's
Oh
right.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
Yes,
that,
yes,
I
yes,
think,
yes.
also, I mean, we talked about how, I think, what was it?
So in
Esoterically,
esoteric,
yes.
yeah,
Go
in
for it.
esoteric astrology, Venus is the ruling sign of Virgo, and esoteric astrology is just a different lens that like that the rulers of each of the planets are shifted.
Yes. And I think it's also just, I feel like also Virgo and Libra used to be one sign back when there were like less signs, right? There was, I think, 8 signs, not 12. And so like this idea of even like Virgo brings about the fall, right? Seasonality in terms of change. And so this level of like, okay, summer's over and now it's kind of like, time to go back to class. And I used to like it, to be honest, like that feeling of
You're
going back to
weird.
school. A little bit, because I was like, oh, I get to see. Well, for a period of time when I was writing the Dragon Warriors, that summer, no, because I was going to a brand new school and it was super scary. But um, yeah, like the ending of an era. I feel like there's like an end of like there's like a little bit of like a
Yeah,
close
I
and
mean it's
beginning.
harvest. Like it's coming to the end of summer now. It's the time of harvest, and I love what you said about the service-oriented sign part because like the pole opposite of Virgo is Pisces,
Yes,
and
yeah.
it's sort of like this service to dreams, service to like what is good for beyond me, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah, that's
for the
true.
allness of things, and there's right now I think it's just like the sun and Venus and Virgo, but there's a lot of action in Pisces, right? Like Saturn's in Pisces right now. Neptune is at
Mhm.
what, 29
Oh yeah.
degrees,
Look
right?
at all of that
So like,
Pisces energy.
and those are like, I don't think they're exact oppositions, but if you look at just where this is, like Saturn is about like reality and time
Mm.
and a karma and discipline in this planet of Pisces, which is like blurry, no boundaries, doesn't really care about structure. And that's oppositioning the sun in Virgo.
Totally, totally. And yeah, and Virgo being the much more also practical sign, I guess,
Yeah.
like from Pisces. And because like my sister has a Virgo moon, and
Yeah.
yeah, that with like an Aries, it's just like it's very critical.
Yeah. So actually, you were mentioning
Yeah.
before we got on this call, like you, um, you have some of the other dragon warriors originally, and like some of your coworkers. What was
Yes.
that about?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have
So
huge experience with that.
this might be because of, well, when I used to be a project manager back when I was like working in the corporate life as a PM, myself and the rest of the females on the team who were like project managers, we were all like half Virgos and half Tauruses.
So
And
much Earth. You must have been very
yeah, we were
organized.
super organized. We were like on top of things. And I had like my work wife as well too. I think she was also I think she was a Virgo. But like I've the original Dragon Warriors, like two of them were Virgos as well, like early September birthdays. I remember this very clearly because birthday parties were a big deal back in the day, and everyone in your class is invited. So it was kind of like a big deal having those parties coming back to school because then you got to like meet new friends and like new like it was a fun time. Like everything's so fresh and new because although it's the ending of summer, like you have this whole opportunity to like learn something new, have new friendships, have new adventures in like the structure of the classroom. So yeah, it's like an
And
interesting, yeah.
so just for context, where is Virgo in your chart?
I have no Virgo in my
But like
chart.
what
Oh, I
house?
have to double check. I forget what
Oh,
house it is now because like
oh, I see. Okay.
my son's in the first house. So let me see here. So Virgo would be,
I know you have to
yeah,
like
I have to
calculate
count. I'll
exact.
count. Yeah, I'll calculate that
Oh,
later.
okay.
But
So yeah, no, so I mean, I sort of love this, right? Because in the end, we all have all the signs. We
yes,
are all
yeah, we
12
are all
signs,
the
we have everything in
signs.
the chart. But like the placement of it is super interesting. So my dad's Virgo and I'm a Gemini. And then where we worked together at the hospital, my boss for like 12 years was a Virgo. So
Yeah.
it's sort of again like right, like very mercurial signs, but very different aspects. So like when it worked, it worked. When it didn't, there was a lot of like, I have to chat, we have to talk through something to resolve it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so some of my closest friends, actually, I have a friend who's visiting, and she's Virgo, and she arrived yesterday when Virgo season started, and she just like heralded all of this change. And we're like, it's such a lovely dynamic
I
because I
bet.
feel like for me as a Gemini, if I'm like struggling with something, like marketing for our new business and stuff like that, when I speak to her, like as we're speaking, like I can actually like feel into like old synapse, new synapse, like
Mm.
I can feel that like all the mental programming that we carry that I think we're going to chat about later, like I can feel some of that shifting just because she's a close friend, like she's part of my inner circle, but like the way we speak just sort of like sort of tetrises things in our brains for both of us.
Yeah, like
It's
it's like a
fascinating.
circuit, right? And you're like
Yeah,
fitting in it
right.
together. Yeah, and that's a great segue back into like telepathy, right? Because
Yes.
if you say you talk about telepathy, right? So we can talk about things in a very fantastical way. Like you and I are
Yeah.
both dreamers, right? So if I and we love comic books, we love all these fantastical stories, and we believe like those are real, and like that's one thing. But it's another thing to like talk to my sister who's very practical, builds software, all this kind of stuff, and be like, okay, uh, let's do some magic and I'm going to read your mind, or like that, like this idea of what's considered ESP and
Yeah.
clairvoyance. And because if we think about Mercury, Virgo being ruled by Mercury, Mercury rules magic. And so this concept of where magic intertwines with what our healthcare is, our bodies are, and like all of that intertwined is like in like kind of Virgo's song as we're going through it. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
practical magic.
yeah,
Yeah, Virgo
yeah,
is the practical magician. Yeah, exactly. And like you mentioned nursing early on, but like
yeah.
the predecessor of nursing may have been, like herbalism, folk medicine, and that's, like compound pharmacies where this is magic, it's earth magic, and there's a practical use and it serves health in the
Yes.
case of healthcare. Right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
this tincture, this tonic, this medicine, this drink or potion or whatever will help you with your cough and la la la. And I think it's interesting because the fall tends to be where we, in today's society, we're often like people have allergy
Get
seasons,
sick.
flus, get
Yeah.
sick,
Yeah.
because I think there's a vibrational shift, there's a weather shift.
Yeah.
I think we're going to talk about this later on. Like mentally, if everyone hates going back to school, that like mental vibration may permeate, or
Mhm.
there's excitement or there's anxiety or there's like, will I make friends, all of this stuff,
Yeah.
even at workplaces, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the weather changes, and where the planet, where earth is in relationship to everything else, everything just sort of shifts.
Yeah, totally,
um, and
totally.
like that impacts our bodies. So like getting strong in transitions and taking practical steps to help your health, your mental, physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, psychic health, like that to me is all completely in the wheelhouse of Virgo.
I
So what would you say, Rachel, is your interpretation of all of these, like Gemini?
This like what we're going with the chart of the everlasting now
Yes,
right now,
yes,
and
I
then
love that. Yes.
that's the way I call it because we're just looking at things like I love Dr. Manhattan's comic books for this. It's like I'm in all of these times at once, but I'm just choosing right now in this like lens right now. This is our beacon to where we are in time space. And this Neptune right here on the omega of everything, just hanging out, anchoring in all of our dream space to really like, I feel like it influences everything else in the chart right now, including the fact that we are entering a very practical sign with our sun, meaning that I feel like it's going to be that anchor point of how our dreams are going to finally manifest in a very practical way, in a way that we can actually tangibly feel it. Because I feel like with telepathy, what's missing is like I've like me and my husband, we have telepathy. We like we can read each other's minds more so in some cases than others, but it's not what I feel like movies show it as. It's a lot for me personally, and I think it's different for everyone. It's like a feeling. Like
Yeah.
I can feel when my friends are in trouble, or I can feel when you need me, or I need you to call, or just I just need to like know where you are right now because I just have a feeling. So that feelings with the idea of telepathy being like you're trying to analyze it, right? Analyze what these perhaps very mystical feelings or hunches are. How do you quantify that? It's going to show up in a way that you cannot deny it, but you're going to just include that into what we consider maybe science or tech.
I'm smiling because a few weeks ago we did one of our cosplays where I was Emma Frost and you were Jean Grey, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty like the reason we resonate with each of those characters is because their psychic powers are actually expressed in the same way you and I feel it. Like I have no connection to Jean Grey, but she is an emotive, like through her emotional, through her
Yeah.
empathy, she is at like she's an omega level psychic, and Jean Grey, for anyone who doesn't know, is part of the X-Men
Yes.
universe, and Rachel dresses up as her quite
Yes,
frequently.
I do. I love Jean Grey now. Yeah, it's been crazy too because I've had people tell me that like me and we've been appearing in dreams lately. But
Oh
like
wow.
yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
doing my Jean Grey thing, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's, you know what, the truth is it's so different for me. Like the way I interpret like this current chart that we're looking at is,
Mm.
Pisces sort of always seductively invites us into the one mind, into, like sort of the all mind, one consciousness. But because of the Saturn and the omega degree of Neptune, it's not a smooth seduction. It's like bumpy AF, because and like it's bumpy because it's almost like we have these little tests on the way, which is so Saturnian, right? It's like if you want access, if you want to like have any concept of the one mind, even for a microsecond, you have to know thyself. And our
Mm.
mentalities, our thoughts, our beliefs, our mental baggage, stuff of our past, what our family and cultures think, our conscious and subconscious minds, we are getting an opportunity right now to sift through that so we can choose what comes along with us.
Mm.
Because this is actually my sense of the Libra energies that we have. So the South Node, I don't think you have the South
I
Node on
don't think I
here.
have the South Node on here, but let's see here. Where's the North Node is still in Aries,
The
yeah or
North
no?
Node is in Aries, so the
Yeah.
South Node is in Libra. Libra is our third, our other air sign,
Mm-hmm.
and the South Node is like, Libra is relational, certainly, but it's also it's about diplomacy and politics and sort of the mindset of that. And the South Node is the stuff that we've done in other lives, and like we're actually moving towards the North Node
Yeah.
now, right? So
Yeah.
like all this, like it's almost like our old thoughts, like, oh, I have doubt, I'm not worth it, I lived with this in my 20s or 30s or whatever. All that is like, if we want, because we all have free will here,
Mm-hmm.
that we now have a chance to like compost that and actually let something new grow. And that to me is all like the fun spunky Gemini energy with Aries and Jupiter currently in Gemini. Those are big energies, big planets, powerful planets in our mental body, sort of igniting that change. And then our lazy mind, like that's kind of getting sifted, getting
Yeah.
like, like look at this. And that impacts our tech, our communication, our writing, our organization and things like that. Absolutely, absolutely, 100%.
Oh man, there's a lot there. There's a lot there that you talked about. I guess maybe what we can before we go into the next segment,
Yeah.
which is like more of like I guess a deep dive into like telepathy.
Well, actually,
So,
I wanted to actually take some time to define some of this, which I think is actually really important to do now, right? Like,
oh yes, yes. Okay, so let me. Can I shift? If I switch this screen, will it? No, it won't.
it will not.
It will not. I'll have to stop my share and then
No
reshare. So
worries.
let me go to a different screen where it's just us. I'm going to stop the share and
Yeah.
then we can go into defining our terms.
Yeah, while you do that, I
Mm-hmm.
guess maybe I
Yes.
can start. So, I actually didn't know that this is how I experienced telepathy. So, Rachel, you were talking about like through your emotions, through your empathy. For me,
Yes.
it's actually through like doing an action, like through communication. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I'll have this thought like I should message this person, and I'll message them, and then I'll be like, oh, this might be what they're going through. Oh, or I'll get those senses. It's. I think you talked about it in a clairsentient way.
Mm.
And I was, because I'm a student of alchemy, one of the ways that we are taught the understanding of telepathy is actually that it is a manifestation of the law of rhythm. And it is our will manifesting as a thought or an idea, which creates a ripple, a vibration. And through practice and training, that ripple can be focalized into, say, your mind or the minds of, like, I don't know, 5 other people through
Mm.
an induction process. And actually, telepathy is rhythmic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a song or a piece of a song or a portion of a song. And if you are somebody who has any type of connection, with God or the divine, to when we have this feeling of like God or angels or our guides or some aspect of past or ancestors are speaking to us, they are participating in one fractal, one part, one tune of a larger symphony of vibration. And law of vibration is one of the 7 hermetic principles. And having access to that, tuning our ears, because listening is a part of communication,
100%.
that is actually what tends to be like, oh, this is my guidance, this is blah blah blah. And it's one thing if your gut tells you something, that's one type of feeling, and this is that other, when divine guidance flows through us, which is also an aspect of telepathy. You're on the receiving end of it for that one. But yeah, that's actually my sort of experience and understanding with it.
Yeah, I feel like it's because the reason why I bring up like defining terms for telepathy is because what you're saying about the rhythm and
Mhm.
like that's how you can almost like anticipate the future, right? Like when I do freestyle dance, like that's how you can actually anticipate hits and moves even though you have never heard the song before, but you can anticipate it because you know how songs are structured, and so like you can
Yeah.
be like, oh, this is going to be where the breakdown is. I don't know exactly what, but it'll be a type of breakdown. So what is that? Am I telling the future? But then at the same time, if we think about being able to see the future, clairvoyance, that's not necessarily telepathy in terms of definition of all of
Mhm.
powers, right? So
Yeah.
even when I was looking up Jean Grey, when I was doing research on her, was that she first became telepathic and then she became telekinetic, right?
Yes.
So there's like a level of like we have all these there's mental powers, but how they're expressed, like telepathy is but one of how I think minds can interact with other minds and the frequencies that exist in like our cosmos, right?
Mm.
So, you bringing up like the song and like I think learning DJing with Kevin has like taught me a lot about just how so many frequencies can exist at once. Mozart has this beautiful line about how in a symphony orchestra you have all of these notes, all of these songs going at once, and like if they weren't all placed where they are like harmonically it would sound like noise, but because it's all like to the sound of the music, like but then there's like gaps within the notes, and
Yeah.
where how long that is between the notes is different based on your perspective as well. So yeah, I think that's why like also speed and being fast, the idea of electricity, that's all related to this telepathy and psychic ability as well. And I think through conversations like what we're having, where you're telling me about, like, I never thought of it in that way in terms of it rhythm and that being like telepathic. But I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, because you brought that, I'm like, yeah, that totally does make sense. But I think it's also just like a rainbow of spectrum of how these different ways that mental power is expressed, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, again, back to, the first thing you said, it makes you think about Virgo season, makes you think about nurses. It's
Yeah.
why we take pulse, right? Like if you have a rhythm, like we have an understanding of what a healthy heartbeat rhythm is.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have our hand on it, without cutting a person open, you know that the rhythm is off, right? And then based on how off it is, you're like, this is a pressure thing, this is a disease thing, this is
Yeah.
and like it tells you, you're not like x-ray visioning into a person's body, but rhythm and rhythm of our minds tells us a lot of things. And it's this thing, right? If you're someone who, like, your default base program is fear and my default base program is doubt and someone else's is shame, for
Anxiety and
example.
shame. Yeah.
Exactly, like that's actually a song that keeps repeating.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, you can like best it or whatever, but like to me the mastery of it comes with like, oh my god, I've been singing this song since I was like 3, or like probably like from 6 lives ago, and now what if I out-tune this song? What if I create little obvious distortions so when I start singing this song it like irks me in like a bizarre way, and that's my
Mm.
trigger to be like, okay, what's a new song? Because like rhythm has, you can tone something, right? If you don't play a guitar or something in a really long time, the strings get loose. So there's a process of toning, tuning, refining it. And I think that ability, that practice of doing that with our minds, that's, I guess, where meditation became big. But like that is a process of stilling, refining, settling your mind so that you can actually see reality, and reality with a capital R, not the illusion, not the grand arcade illusionary matrix that we're in, but like actual reality. Because to
Mm.
me, telepathy requires, from a mental alchemy perspective,
Mm.
telepathy, thought transference, like requires a few, it requires a few things. It requires that you understand the law of rhythm, that you yourself
Would you
are.
like to, is there like a little like the law of rhythm is this?
Yes. Let me pull it up in my hermetic.
Yes.
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 Um,
My hermetic priestess.
yeah, it's the law of rhythm. Let me just look in the table of contents
How
in
many
my book
how many
here.
hermetic laws are there again? Are there 7 or there 9?
7.
There's 7.
There are
Okay.
7.
There's 7.
Okay, so
Just
page,
like 7 planets.
exactly. The law of rhythm. This is from the Kabbalion.
Yes.
Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. So if you apply this to telepathy, like
Yeah.
someone can only control you for so long. And then that's what, I think this might like move us into our section about telepathy in our world, right?
Mhm.
Like we are all already
Oh yeah.
telepathic, but
100%.
like what are we connecting to? What is the source, right? Like if my source is the fear porn and news media, then I'm going to hear that, I'm going to speak that. It just kind of flows through me, right? Like what comes in has to come out. And so, this whole pendulum swing left to right obviously deals with our emotions, but it's
Mm.
actually showing us the range of our mentality.
Mm.
And if I am a person who is maybe in a place in my life where I'm of weaker mind, I am far more susceptible to the thoughts, the influences, and the transference from other people, rather than building mastery of my own mental alchemical natures, and actually being like, I hear you, and this is my thought. My thought could be that I agree, and my thought could equally be that I disagree. And
Yeah.
that practice comes from us understanding rhythm, as far as I understand it. And I love the last line, rhythm compensates.
Yeah.
So, like, our mind will always compensate for things like dark to light, fear to courage, love to hate, like these polarities. There's a
A
rhythmic
connection.
swing.
Always a
Exactly.
connection. And just like that,
Yeah,
like Virgo to Pisces, like
exactly.
connection, they can seem so different, but you're really like just another way of looking at the crystal, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I know I'm like, I feel like I talk about like alchemy and the hermetic
No,
principles in
we're all
every
in
single
it.
video.
No, because that's all it is though, right? Because like as I was saying, like you can't talk about grand truths of the cosmos in a PowerPoint presentation. They come out
Yeah.
in stories and poems and fables. And so
Yeah.
like as we talk about this today's harmonics episode, it's just natural that rhythm is related to telepathy. And if that's the case, then dance and our bodies are also related to telepathy and our minds in a way that
Yeah.
we perhaps don't give enough credit to, I
Yeah,
think.
and it's simple things. Like if a song comes on that you love, you don't consciously like tap your foot or bob your head. It happens because
Yeah.
your body is
Responding to
moving,
it, like a tuning
responding.
fork.
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think you wanted to talk about clairvoyance. I think you did. So precognition and like
Yes, I had
how
like
do,
some definitions pulled
yeah,
out here. So let's
perfect.
see here. So clairvoyance specifically. Have you seen the movie Push?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes. Yes.
um, I love Push. Actually, we should include that in the
It's a
esoteric
comic, isn't
movie.
it?
You are probably correct. You're
I
probably
feel like
correct. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
sure. I'm not sure. I feel like they could have done so much more in that world than the one movie we got. But
I know, I know.
and also
It's
Captain America's in it.
yeah. I actually so the reason I think I had already seen it, but like Chris Evans is in
Mm.
a whole bunch of like independent and mainstream comic book movies before he ever did Captain America. So I feel like he
Yeah,
was
he
like
was like
kind
meant
of
to be an avatar for
yeah.
certain things. Yeah, I need to
Yes.
look at his birth chart. Actually, you know what?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
he's
Let me do a
interesting.
quick little. Chris.
But sorry, you were talking about the definitions
Oh
though.
yes, 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 yes. I'm just put that on the side. So clairvoyance, knowledge of information not necessarily known to any other person, not obtained by any ordinary channels of perceiving or reasoning,
Yeah.
thus a form of extrasensory perception. Spiritualists, I'm pulling this from Britannica, by the way, this
Okay.
definition. We
Spiritual.
can use this as like a
Yeah, yeah.
basis because they're going to have a certain spin on things too. Spiritualists also use the term to mean seeing or hearing, clairaudience, the spirits of the dead that are said to surround the living. I don't think that that is a true statement, but like
I I think
it is
if
on
it's from
some.
Britannica, yeah, I think in that time, you know, occultist, spiritualist, mediums,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that kind of like, you know, I don't know, whatever, or late 1800s. I think this is kind of speaking to that
Yes, that
place.
concept. Yes. So,
Yeah.
so clairvoyance means clear seeing in
Yes.
French,
Yes.
and research in parapsychology, such as testing a subject's ability to predict the order of cards in a shuffled deck,
Mhm.
has yet to provide conclusive support for the existence of clairvoyance. Well, that's going to happen now in this season.
Yeah.
That's my sense. They were going to actually have actual proof now of these types
Yeah.
of phenomenon. That's what I feel in terms of a
Yeah, you know,
reading.
in the land of things to me that aren't interesting is needing to prove what is already true. Right? Like, I mean, I'm sure somebody else would find it interesting, but like, I think for you and I, this is just part of like,
You're
if
right.
someone wants to prove it, they can 100% prove it, great. But the proof is necessary for someone who actually does not have lived experience of magic in the everyday,
Mm,
right? If you don't have that,
yeah.
it's almost like, you know, this may be a sensitive and not the best example, but it's almost like, you know, when the first ships came to what was known as Turtle Island, now what is now called North America, prior to colonialism,
Mm,
you know, they came and like the indigenous people here were already one with the land. Their language, their entire mechanism of animation was with the
totally.
land. Their
Yeah.
names of things were imbued with reverence. So they didn't always have a separate word for God, please, and thank you, right? Like because the language is based on the culture. And then
Yeah.
when people came, like, you know, French, English, Danish, Spanish, they were like, oh, these people
That's
are rude.
this.
That's this, you know, like let's
Yeah.
put some stereotypes here because they don't have the word please and thank you. Well, you know, the word for sweetgrass in Ojibwe is wingashik, which is like hair of the mother. And that is an
Mm.
English translation. But like when you actually hear it sung, and often prayer is sung in these cultures, right? You are, it is in, the reverence is inescapable. You have to be an entire wall of concrete to not feel it, right? But there's no separate word, because
Mm.
how can thank you and mother and God be separate from the medicine,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You're talking about also
So,
like yeah, like the idea of having a name for things, but then
yeah,
also real like the goddess of many names, Isis, right? Like
yes,
that, like it's just
yes,
you are all of those things, but you're also that individual, and like that concept is I think a really hard thing
yes,
for us to grasp in
absolutely,
3D realm, right?
yes,
And like
it is. It is. And like, again, like, this is not anyone's fault. It's
no, yeah,
just like, we don't play there. And if you need proof, then absolutely, this must be very exciting for you. But like, for us, it is already so. We already live it. It's already this and like 10 things more. Right?
yes,
Like,
yes. Well, I mean, like for example, I've done a lot of work or looking into hormones, specifically
yeah.
our happiness hormones, which is like dopamine,
Yes.
serotonin, and oxytocin. And oxytocin itself is a very interesting hormone. It's known as the love hormone. It's the bonding hormone. It's the hormone that's released when
Yes.
mamas have babies. And I think there's a key in there in regards to like our telepathy as human beings, because
Hmm.
not all hormones are neurotransmitters, but the ones that are, the neurotransmitters are basically how our body's technology works, like how our
Yeah.
body communicates with itself, right? At the speed of thought, right? There's nothing more advanced than that tech right now that I know of. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so oxytocin is actually released when human beings move in sync with each other. So if I do like this and you copy me and do this, we will create our
Yes.
hormones will release like oxytocin will be like you can trust this person because
Yeah.
we're now so like that's why
Belonging, love. Yeah. Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
dance with others, that's why there's this like that's why when I was growing up, dance was such a way for me to make friends because I was
Yeah.
really shy and like it was hard for me to actually like articulate, but it was more fun to like make dances with my friends, like share music with each other, move together, dance together as a way of
Yeah.
building bonds. And then like the talking came after.
Yes,
So
because
yeah,
you're free to talk when you feel belonged and safe, that these are your people, this is your tribe,
yeah,
this is your
yeah. And then you
family.
like unlock that throat chakra. So it's just kind of
Yeah.
cool how like it's related
Yeah.
to other energy centers in your body, and things like movement can are a way of activating your own
Yes.
like those
Yeah.
the neurotransmitters which are like on other
Wow.
levels exist like
In the subtle bodies also. Exactly. And like,
yeah,
while, the mercurial sign of Gemini is like very heavily mental, I feel like Virgo, especially this season, is very related to like what's an earth sign. So like
yeah,
Earth Mama, dancing,
yeah,
moving, running, exercising, like, whatever your
health, yeah,
expression is.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that kind
yeah,
of stuff, and that so like that level
absolutely.
of health, and like I worked in diabetes when I was at the hospital with you, right? And
Yeah,
so this
yeah,
whole concept of the best thing you can do for diabetes is like eat well,
exercise.
exercise,
Yeah,
take care
yeah,
of your body. And I think there's also a reframe right now in how we look at health, because
yes,
let's have it not be like about the disease, but just like take care, like listen to your body, like what does it need right now? And you can't
yes,
just I've been a personal trainer for so long right now, and I've seen so many women and transformed so many women, and all of it, everyone is completely different. You literally cannot give anyone like the same cookie cutter diet plan to like lose weight in
yeah.
12 weeks and all that stuff. It's really like
Blueberries are great. Eat
yeah,
kale, don't eat
yeah,
kale.
yeah, exactly. Or
Like,
you
like,
can't, you literally
yeah,
can't say that about anything. Nutrition
yeah,
is kind of like religion. I feel like different things
yeah,
will work for you and your connection to your
yeah,
body, and
yes,
what foods unlock
mhm,
you. Like it's like especially plants, and you're consuming them like by way of you're like interfacing with them,
yeah,
and their own neurotransmitters are coming with your neurotransmitters, and you have like
yeah.
a key, and then you get intel, and then what that looks like as it come like downloads into you like mentally is
Yeah.
you know we don't know what that looks like or is mapped out
So,
specifically, but it's
yeah, and
there.
it's an interesting connection, right? Like, there's this phrase, "You are what you eat." But when you look at that with the mind, like, what are the things that nourish your mind? What do you feed your mind every day? Is the first thing you look at how
Mm,
many likes you got on Twitter, your social media, your news, who bombed
yeah,
who attacked who? Like, if that is like if that is breakfast for your mind, it's going to take your mind like your whole day. And then now you add stress, then you add personal stress, personal fears.
Deadlines,
um
being late for this, having to be
yes, like
here. Yeah,
self-worth.
lost my thing.
Yeah, like I would say, I don't know, most people on the planet feed consciously or unconsciously, but this is what you're feeding your brain. Like imagine if all you ate was deep fried everything, and that is constantly what you ate for 30 years, you would obviously have several physical ailments. And yet we cannot apply the same wisdom to our mind, right? I'm
We
like, I
can't
live,
apply that wisdom to our bodies right now
well,
either.
yeah, that's also true. But like, it's like, so right now, I think also because I'm kind of polarizing, I'm not feeling,
Mm,
I, I'm not feeling like mental exhaustion and
mm.
like blah, blah, blah. I'm just not, because I spend a lot of time in the summer preparing for the fall. That's just, like good Chinese medicine practices. Anyway, or like good holistic medicine practices.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing this, like, oh, in a couple of weeks it'll be September, and this like high
Heightened
hum of
panic. Like,
stress,
oh,
panic. Transit is like the TTC here, the Toronto Transit Commission. Like, there's just this bizarre level of increasing stress, and I'm like, why? Like, now that I see it, I think I was part of it for a really long time. Obviously, I took transit to work as well. But now that I'm not part of it, now that I am much more discerning about how I use my phone, my technology, I actually use it more to put stuff out rather than receive other people's stuff. I'm very, very discerning. All of these are Virgo themes that are not innate to me. As a mercurial sign, I actually had to learn it over many years. It was not easy. But now that I'm kind of like at the tail end, the omega degree of it, as you like to call it, I'm like, oh, this was what was causing my stress, my dread, my
yeah.
those old patterns of mine. Right. And now there's like something new that is very clearly in my mind and in my brain birthing. And so I think that's the thing, right? Like when we hear things like misery loves company, like if you're stressed and if I tell you all my problems and I actually want to like drag you down with me, right? So that we can
Mm.
both be miserable together and then I'll feel a bit better. Then we can drink some alcohol, smoke some weed, check out, leave our bodies even more. And then 15 years later, wonder why we have a horrible relationship to our power center, our hearts, why our relationships suck, why our jobs are dead end, why we struggle with money. And it's
Hmm.
like, this is why.
Yeah. No, I feel you on that on so many
Sorry, like, this is
levels.
my rant for
No,
right now.
I feel like when we talk about Saturn, so I've my hubby, my beautiful husband Kevin, he's taught me a lot about like he's got a lot of like harmonious aspects with Saturn. So discipline for him is like he's got like his own like OCD kind of stuff. But you know what? In our relationship together, it's given like it's empowered me because like I am very like a dreamer. I am organized when it comes to work, but it's almost just like for my own dreams. I'm just like, oh, it can do this, but you do need to have those same that same level of like, you know what? This is the debt like boundaries to your dreams. That's what I think the lesson is of that is where like me doing the book, creating a comic book. These are all things that are fun, right? Us performing, us doing dances, but to add like times and dates and rehearsals and practice and all of the very practical things that go into making a dream come true is, I think, a big lesson. And that includes like, working out, like stretching, waking up in the morning and just all that. And all of that kind of stuff. It's all part of I think the lessons of how we bring dreams into reality, and then also not just get focused on like just productivity.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is actually a trap of Virgo, excessive attachment to outcomes, productivity, and
Yes.
perfectionism. And I
Yes.
love what you just said, because I think this is how I understand the esoteric ruler, like Venus as an old ruler of
Yeah.
of Virgo. Because if you're creating your dream, then your process, your step by step process and plan to achieve it, is also an aspect of your dream coming to fruition,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
how often do we work towards our dream but completely forget the energy of our dream and then just become so, this is my plan, now my plan is not working, now it didn't happen in that
Yeah.
time. you didn't
Yeah.
do this, now you screwed it up, now I'm going to blame you. Those are shadow aspects of Virgo,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
like again, like back to telepathy, if that is the quality and the climate of my mind, that is 100% going to impact the people I work with, the people I live with. It, like, you know, try as you might, it'll impact your clients, it'll impact your neighbors. You may not always know, but again, you know, going back to the very first hermetic principle, like the universe is mental, it is one mind, one consciousness.
Yes.
And so if you are singing an out of tune arrhythmic song from, you know, your war torn life 7 lives ago, then that's going to be arrhythmic to your present, in this body, in this life, in this time dream. It's going to be arrhythmic to your family members, to your coworkers. And the ability to accept and discern, like, where we are, what song are we singing, without judgment, because that's just uninteresting and unhelpful. That
Yeah.
is, I think, like, to your point, like, because in working with Rachel, this is just like for the audience, like, she has so much fun in practice, and she has so much fun being like, let's have a marketing meeting, let's have this, let's have that. And I'm like, why are you so happy? You're giving both of us more work. But she just does it, and you know, speaking of thought
Oh
transference,
my
like,
gosh, that's
that
so
is
sweet.
infectious. It is so sweet. I do not dress up as comic book characters as much as I love them. That is all your, and like, it's so funny, right? Because you're not violating my free will, but your level of joy and excitement is so high that it can, like,
Oh,
I
that.
have to have walls if I want to stop it, right? And I don't have walls with you. So it like flows very naturally. And I'm like, yeah, I get, we're just doing this. You
That's
know,
so
like, I own a
funny.
corset now. Like, this is my lived experience of knowing and working with you, and like reading your 200-page manuscript and being like, this is so amazing at like 3 in the morning,
Because babe,
right?
like that's the like I think we're proof of telepathy because like
Yeah.
literally like I know you don't quite remember like when we first met, but I remember because you hired me at the hospital and so and it was my transition into health care.
Oh, I do remember.
Yeah, because I was coming from like an agency that like I went to South Africa. We were dealing like with Accenture, which is a global consulting firm. So it's kind of ironic. I went back to like KPMG and was like global digital
After your little,
yeah,
yeah.
after my little stint over here. But then just realized the whole world is just a stage, anyways, and it's all programmed and calculated and awful. But but we are the ones we've been waiting for, and I think my big telepathy is, and it's been coming. It's been I came off birth control and like I found astrology and it's been a long time for me to actually be like this is a real thing. Like and like to really believe it's like one thing like oh yeah
Yeah.
we're I'm writing a book, it's this is science fiction blah blah blah, but like it's another thing for it to be like you guys like we are in we are in a story and we are in the most magical story, and there are those of us who are here to pull all of that down into a way
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
can like work with. And so
Yeah.
whatever that is like writing for me, like I just feel like the relationships I have, I will feel like I have known you. Like it's like we meant to come here. I it's just and like
Because we didn't you were talking about when we met or how we met, but like we didn't talk to each other for like years after you
no, it's
left.
true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had like almost like a blip in time because of like the world changing and doing its thing,
Yeah.
and I think it's just a level of like we always knew, but I also was under a level of like
We were just in different places.
yeah, just
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
journey. But I think it's just like that's why like in the story when we think of even Virgo and being on time and being like oh
Mm.
the deadlines and what I talked about with Lionsgate was that a big freedom of me was like oh to be out of the calendar to be like why does it have to be on a Tuesday? And I know we do today's harmonics on like a Friday, but like just because you don't hit a certain like let's say time doesn't mean you don't do it.
Mm.
You have
Yeah.
you know like there's still like you're never late. You are on time, but at the same time you do need to have a certain level of like boundary and respect for time because there are other plans that people have and like you can't overbook on other things. So it's all of this kind of I think of a dance that we have with our own relationship with discipline to self, and once we have more mental discipline, I think a lot more of the magical stuff will follow, right? I told people on my live stream last time like if you're someone who had a gift of telekinesis and you're like meant to like raise a small object, right? And you have that talent, you still need to practice. More than likely, right? Like more likely you're gonna have like a small object first and it'll be able to float, and then you work on bigger objects and you like take time. But also too, if you're not meant to do that, that's not your gift, that'll never work for you. So it's like
No matter how much you try. Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And then you'll be like, I'm not meant to do any kind of magic, but really your magic is to walk through walls.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
just like that kind of like that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to say with astrology and it's like your
Yeah.
superpowers and telepathy being one of
Yes.
many superpowers. Just because you're not expressing telepathy in the way that we are or the way that movies have expressed doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in your own life, in your own world,
Yes.
in your own story in a way that hasn't maybe even been talked
Yeah.
about yet. And that's where art comes into play with how you're able to illustrate it, have conversations with your friends,
Yeah.
um, find a movie or a book that like, oh wait, that's what it kind of is, and tie it together with something else. And so in that we're able to convey all that
Totally.
stuff. Yeah.
And, like it's funny, right? Like I don't know how it is, but like I find most mothers are very like
Oh yeah.
are very telepathic. And you were talking about hormones earlier. So it's this thing, right? Like I was a very good liar as a kid because I was super
Me
naughty.
too.
My
It's a
mom almost always knew.
oh,
She always knew. She didn't always
confront you
like
about it, just like oh,
confront me. She was just like, ah, she's lying. Like it actually like it's like this is just a thing. And I remember being very proud of how well I lied. But I had these roommates in first or in second and third year university. And even like I had this habit of embellishing the truth. So I wouldn't flat out lie, but I would like add things to it to like make it more
you're telling a
interesting.
better story, my dear.
Right,
I know.
exactly.
I'm a
But
Gemini moon. I understand
it is,
that a little
right?
bit.
But I didn't always use it for like the good of I use it selfishly, whatever. And they were like, yeah, one day we were all like hanging out and I was complaining that somebody else was lying. And both my roommates just looked at me and they're like, we know that you lie, like not all the time, but like often, right? Like you embellish things. And I was like, what? Like they just knew. They lived with me. They were
Yep.
like, the tone of voice, the rhythm, the song that I'm singing is slightly off tune than what my truth sounds like. And they knew, right?
Oh,
So, like,
interesting.
moms are close friends, maybe siblings. Like, my aunt is like that. I'll be like, oh, I really want this food, but I won't tell her. And like 95% of the time, that's the thing she cooks that day,
I love
right? Like,
that. I
it's
love
like,
that.
and
Those are
then
great
that is
examples.
practical. It's a great example. She's actually Pisces.
Oh,
And
I
so,
love
like, the
that too.
opposite of Virgo,
I love that.
right? Right? It's amazing. And so it's this thing, right? Like when you don't have to communicate, when you don't blah blah blah. And again, it's not like always good. Like there's a negative side to this,
Yes, there
obviously,
is.
as we
Yes.
know from like any weird cult leader and just general news and politics. Like
Yeah.
corporate culture can sometimes be
Yeah.
such a like there's psyops and things like that. But like we may experience that on a very practical level, and I think that's like the download of Virgo energy. Like accept your practical magic and like be aware of like whose thoughts are you transferring. I remember this one really amazing piece of advice I got really early on around our self narrative. And it
Mm.
was like, focus on your self narrative, just listen to it and ask yourself, whose voice is this?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the voice of like a dad, a mom, an authority figure, a teacher? Is it actually your voice? Does it sound kind? Does it sound shameful?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what unconsciously we transfer and we put out into the world, right? And when we do that, other people are not going to be open, vulnerable, and intimate with us because we're emitting whatever shame, fear, judgment, authority. Those people who say nice things, but they actually sound really condescending.
Oh yeah, I
Like
know.
so like
Or
tone
like
that.
insulting in like a weird kind of like it's
Yes,
like a
yes.
compliment, but it's like also insulting at the same time. It's just like
Exactly.
I
Like, yes. Yeah, yeah. I actually had that. Someone told me I was very beautiful for a colored woman.
whoa.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they said it in this, they actually meant it. They said it in this really like, wow, you are so beautiful for a colored woman. And I was like, Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I've
right.
had that from like you're very beautiful for an Asian girl kind of thing.
Yes,
Yeah, that kind
yes.
of thing.
But like,
Yeah.
here's the thing. I think they genuinely mean it. They're genuinely
I
trying to give you a compliment. But there is so much hatred, judgment, attachment to whatever racial things that that's actually what I hear. And my
yeah.
body goes, "Oh, thank you," rather than, "Oh, thank you." So instead of building a bridge with like
Mm,
a stranger, you've like broken that bridge, set it on fire, and stomped on it,
yeah,
right? And
no,
then
yeah.
right? And that person is going to wonder, oh, like, why don't people like me? It's like, this is why. There's a tonality to like the tone of our voices. That's the quality of our mind as well, right? Like, we
Oh
don't
my
give
gosh.
words to everything we think, but that rhythm, that tonality is 100% there. I know we can talk on this subject forever.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I think we're at time. I
We
think we're
are.
at time. Yes. We both have
Do you have any closing thoughts before I tell
so I
them
think we can preface, we can foreshadow what the next couple episodes are going to be about because
Please
we
do.
were initially going to talk about technology today,
Yes.
but I don't think this is not related, right? But we wanted to kind of break things up in such a way so that we can define our terms,
Yes.
so that when we're talking about things and like we're talking about psychic powers, we're talking about
Yes.
telepathy, but in a way that is practical, very
Yes.
Virgo, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so technology is, like that saying of like technology just like people thought it was magic, but now it's technology, right? But
Yes.
there
Yes.
is still this interplay of like magic and technology, also like what we define as technology, right? And even when I used to do stuff for Accenture before I worked at the hospital, we had two different departments, digital and technology. So
Oh, right. Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
differentiation
Yeah.
between those two practices, let's say. And
Mhm,
so
mhm.
digital being like, let's say, software, even think of like Web3, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Even if we think of like social media, all the tools that we use, and then there's actually like the tech itself, like Bluetooth
Mhm.
technology, Wi-Fi, the fact that how we actually connect to things and broadcast, and all how these systems actually interface,
Yeah.
how fragile it all really is in our new world, actually, because things like
Fragile and powerful, both.
yes, yeah,
Paradoxical.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can talk about all of that kind of stuff. I think next week will be technology, but as far as like closing thoughts of this,
Yes.
I do think that everyone is rising in an awareness of certain telepathic powers because if we are all one and we're all
Mhm.
raising an awareness, then that's what we're going to be feeling. But we're all going to have a very different lens of what that kind of looks like, and so for us to be um, lean into the gifts of Virgo and less of the shadow where it can be like this very defined critical, like it has to look this way, it has to appear in this kind of box, but if it appears out of it then it's not scientific, it doesn't fit. But we can have a bit more, I think, flexibility and malleability with more mercurial,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, looking at things from a different perspective and multiple perspectives as at once as we look at a very practical approach to magic
Yeah, 'tis the
powers.
season for that. Absolutely. Yeah. So just to foreshadow, as you said,
Yeah.
through Virgo season, I think Rachel and I are both fairly impassioned about continuing conversations around telepathy and technology both, because again, like it's those things, right? They seem different, but there's like a big connection here, right? Just because a lot of how we currently understand our mind, that's how we're building our tech.
Yes.
But how we understand our mind is so limited, and it's really one-sided, and it's one type of, like person, like, creating that type of software that is not reflective of many of us in the rest of the world. And there's fear, and there's dread, and there's a lot of control mechanisms that we are all, through Virgo season, learning to discern and choose so that we serve the dream of the world that we actually want to leave behind, right? Like, there's some
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
legacy stuff here. Virgo is interested, like, it's a service sign, it's interested in what type of world we leave behind.
Mhm.
And so through the weeks of Virgo season, we're gonna be the playing with those aspects, and hopefully if our planning and everything works out, it's going to end in a grand show, maybe with Jean Grey and Emma Frost
They'll
back.
revisit.
So
They'll revisit each other, and then maybe we'll
yes,
have some like guest stars with other X-Men. Who knows? We could maybe
yes,
pull something
yes,
together.
absolutely.
If
That
other
would be
people,
really great.
yeah, because I've been getting a lot of in my cosplay reads, like everyone,
Yeah.
like people who haven't dreamed before are dreaming now,
Wow.
right? So
Yes.
pay attention, everyone.
No, my dreams are like next level. Pluto in Aquarius is also Pluto in Aquarius retrograde right now is also a big, like we can talk about that later on. But again, Aquarius is another air sign. There's a
Yeah.
lot of mentality for us that is shifting, which is an exciting time. So Rachel, before we formally close today,
Yes.
we touched on a lot of themes. Tell people where to find you and follow you
Oh
and
yeah.
all the different aspects of your work, please.
As I'm organizing all of my multifaceted selves. So,
Yeah.
basically, Gold and Sugar TV is where you can find all of the production stuff. This weekend, I'm going to be having a little section for Quantum Play Studios, very specifically, where you can catch all previous episodes. But if you want to work with me directly, I have everything through Sacred Soma Alchemy in terms of like neurolinguistic astrology, which is how I look at astrology, which is like a combination of, the stories you tell yourself in your head and what the stars reveal about you as like a player in the game of life. And so that's like how I look at it. And the way I look at it is like, okay, like you're this type of like hero and you're maybe going through this. But if you're interested in any of that, you can check out my website, therachelzproject.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And if you're interested in working with me, and if you're as excited about
Yes.
alchemy and like the alchemical lens on astrology and some of the more priestess work that I do, my website is quantumtemple.space. And
Yes.
I also have a Substack account called Connect the Dots at Substack, which is a video publication around cosmic energies as they flow through us. And it's just a weekly stitch on how the astrological weather affects us, which, fun fact, is one of the other Hermetic principles: as within, so without.
Oh yes, 100%. It's just as with, yeah, as within, so without, as
Yeah.
above, so below. As like we are all connected, and in more ways than we actually really think. So I think,
Yeah, and I love that. Like we're all connected sounds like a really good like gif or meme. There's a joy, a pleasure, and a responsibility and a discipline that comes with being connected, right? And like
yeah,
this is again like such a big thing with the Virgo energy. So again, I know we're at an end, but please continue to join us through the next few weeks of Virgo season. Please find Rachel at the Rachel Z Project and at Gold Sugar TV.
yes, Gold Sugar
Um,
TV, yes,
Gold
and
Sugar
all
TV.
of that, all the live streams and all of that stuff will like any of the show, the
Yes.
cosmic show. We'll sit there so you can get all the replays. We're also on Spotify as well. You can get all of the replays of that if you want like an auditory version of
Yes.
today's harmonics. So
Yes. And again, you can find me at quantumtemple.space or connectthedots.substack.
definitely.
And if you are interested in emailing us about what you think of our show, Today's Harmonics, our email is todaysharmonics@gmail.com. It's harmonics with an S. And we would love to hear from you. And if there's certain subjects that you want us to talk about, maybe in or out of costume, we'd love to
Yeah.
do that as well.
Definitely, definitely. Sounds good. I think that is a wrap. We'll
That
catch
is a
all
wrap.
of you next
Thank you. Thank you.
Friday. Same bat
Thank you for being
time,
here.
same bat-ish channel. Till next time, my friends. Bye.
Bye.